Hello, everybody. Ron Callis here with another episode of Automation Unplugged, episode number 33. Let me jump over to Facebook as I always do. Let's see if our technology is cooperating with us today. Been having a few internet connection issues earlier in the day, so let's hope that's behind us. If you're out there, please don't forget to like this stream, share this stream, give me a comment, let me know you're out there and watching, and say hello. That helps the good old algorithms get this content out to your friends and peers in the industry. And what is today? Today is Wednesday, February 7th. And I'm having a great week. It's been an exciting week. We had the SpaceX big rocket launch here in Florida. I think that was yesterday. So if you didn't know, you can go to YouTube and type in Starman. And Elon Musk put one of his roadsters up in space. There's a mannequin wearing a spacesuit, and you actually get live video camera feeds of all different angles of the car as it is going to circumnavigate the sun for the next billion years. I don't know that his batteries on board will last that long, but it's pretty neat. Anyway, I have another pretty cool guest for you. Let me bring him on. I've got Lani Godfrey from ProSource. Lani, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Ron. Thank you.
Lani, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us here on Automation Unplugged.
More than happy to do it.
So, Lani, where are you coming from? Where is home base?
The friendly confines of Lexington, South Carolina today.
Nice. How's the weather treating you up there?
A little rainy, but close to 70 degrees, so that's a positive.
Wow. Holy moly. I was just on the phone earlier today with a customer of mine up in Maine, and they just got buckets of snow, and they actually had to go pick their kids up from school. Schools got canceled.
Yeah, they have another wave heading their way, from what I understand.
Yes. Yeah, we don't have that problem down here in Florida. It's nice and sunny and warm, but we don't want to rub that in. So anyway, if you're out there, guys and gals, watching this show, thank you very much. If you're watching live or if you're watching it later on in a recorded version, we appreciate you watching. We're going to have a fun interview with Lani. We're going to learn about buying groups, and Lani has a vast wealth of experience working with CI businesses of all shapes and sizes around the country. And I'm hoping to peel the layers back on that a little bit and hopefully give you some golden nuggets and some ideas and takeaways. At least I know every time I talk to Lani, I walk away with a lot of value. So I hope you folks watching get the same. If you are out there, please, again, like this and or comment or share this. And we really appreciate it here at One Firefly, and that helps get this message out and this content out to lots more people. That's the way the Facebook algorithms work. So, Lani, let's first of all start. What is your role? You're at ProSource. That's a buying group, and I want to talk about what ProSource is. But first of all, what's your role?
No, I'm the district manager for the Southeast. I have counterparts that carry the same title in the Northeast and Central and out into the West. So we have a team of 5 of me, if you will. And essentially, I engage my members about 100 strong in the Southeast. And I work with my vendor resources, whether it's a direct manufacturer, a local rep in the marketplace, and coordinate business relationships between the CI business owner and the vendor partner, depending on what fits that particular business model. So I like to call it a bridge builder for the right reason, if you will.
So ProSource is a buying group. We, One Firefly, for full disclosure, we are a ProSource member. and have been a happy member of ProSource now for several years. And so I certainly could say in my words, what is ProSource, but why should I do that when I have you? I can hear it from the horse's mouth. So what is ProSource? And for those members out there, think there maybe are a lot of integrators that are going to watch this that maybe aren't a part of a buying group, so they may not know exactly what that means.
We're essentially a collective, if you will, that's a member-owned organization. So any of the members amongst our roster is essentially an owner to the group. And what we've done in that case is we have a board of directors that's made up of our members that guides our business direction, approves our budgets, approves me and my travel and my interactions, and we leverage our presence with respective vendors to put programs in place for those business owners. So sometimes it represents savings or back-end dollars. In the case of yours and a few others, it's a service vendor that's above and beyond what a box solution or an inventory item would be. So in that case, you're part of that business engagement back into the membership. So we serve both sides. I like to call it two pillars between our vendor partners and our member partners. And essentially, we take the education from what's working in certain areas, vendor and business owner alike, and try to build those success stories into more folks. So I like to phrase it as treating our industry like a real industry and adding credibility to what our industry does.
Now, how did you come about landing at ProSource? So I know you've had a foundation. I think you started in the industry back in the 90s. And
yes.
Where did you come from, and how did you land here?
Well, the best part is before I walked into a Circuit City and ever sold my first television, I was a freshman in college, and I literally got tired of smelling like a French fry. And as much as I loved working at Fuddruckers, I worked every position in the store, so I still know how to grill and cook and make cookies. And I walked across the street to Circuit City and got an interview, and I've been in CI in electronics pretty much ever since. Minimal stops to finish my degree. And as I've walked that path, I've run into some pretty interesting people. So I found my way through the CI dealers, and then I found, because I wanted to take control of my sales process as opposed to the retail setting where that's limited when you're selling better quality. You can only take it so far. And I learned lessons in those business practices, positive and negative. And when I was fortunate enough to be hired at Avad, by Kimberly Brown and Bill Morton, there was a lot more to learn. And more than just being a salesperson was understanding how to engage people's businesses, learn more than just what they like, and be willing to tell them what might need to be said instead of what they want to hear. And from that standpoint, after approximately 9 years with Avad, some people that I trust and respect a great deal, I can single out from Martin and Logan and from, at that time, Denon and Marantz, recommended me to the ProSource folks, Dave Workman and Tim Bashford and Sherry D'Antonio. And it seemed like a beautiful step for me to continue to be able to do what I like and engage on a more distinct level with business owners as well as vendor partners. So, looking back, I don't think I missed much, and I don't have any bad regrets, but I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at today.
What does a normal day in the life of Lani look like? Are you working the phones? Are you out, are you working markets and driving around and flying, or what are you doing?
Well, no day is the same. I can say the holidays and early on in the first quarter is a little quieter as far as travel is concerned. My barometer for myself is I prefer to have 5 meaningful interactions during the course of a business day. So if that's a face-to-face appointment, Charlotte, Atlanta, Charleston are drivable markets for me. Florida's obviously get in an airplane, but whether it's solving something unique through email or responding to phone calls. Most recently, we were building our attendance for Summit in Nashville, which we've anniversaried another record year of registrations. That's 3 in a row that I understand.
Wow.
My days are different. Some days I'm on the laptop from 8 to 5 and anywhere between 3 and 15 phone calls, depending on what's needed for that day. My field work is my favorite, but it's not practical to be in the field 3 weeks out of the month either. So we try to travel very strategically.
Now, there are other buying groups in the CI space, but to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, you'll know better than I, your ProSource is the buying group that actually has a team such as yours, whereas you are a member of an outside team interfacing, and you use the words bridging vendor programs and relationships with the CI businesses. And in many cases, as you've and I have talked in the past, in many cases, you're acting as a counselor, maybe a therapist to some of these businesses. and is that one of the primary differences of ProSource and any other group?
Yeah, the way I like to say it is, as we carve our map into 5 distinct sections, the district managers in those respective territories have their fingers firmly on the pulse of what's going on in that territory, and it allows us to manage to a smaller population within that territory. We even take it one step further where we have our larger markets and our larger memberships are managed by Dave Workman and Jessica Paskin, so they serve the Crutchfields of the world, if you will. Sherry D'Antonio, our membership director, adds additional support into our power channel, and then the district managers have our individual maps. So we have multiple layers carried in addition to the regional focus that a district manager has by focusing on their smaller corner of the map, if you will.
I got it. Understood. So you mentioned the Nashville event, and this is coming up around the corner, right? This is, what is it, next month?
Approximately March 3rd through the 6th.
Okay.
Some folks are leveraging an extra day in Nashville because Nashville's cool. But that's ProSource's premier event. In a lot of cases, not to pick on anyone, but with CEDIA being so far west, the eastern members of ours are attending at a higher sacralization level because they get what they want out of that content. There's a thread of business content and interaction, vendor participation, and then the trade show is a component of it, but it's not the everything. It's half of the show, if you will. So we try to cut a good balance, but by keeping it on this side of the country, our attendance is strong because of the accessibility.
So, how would you frame the reason one of your members should go to the summit? It's called the ProSource Summit, correct?
Yes. Without putting on rose-colored glasses, if you can take away 1 or 2 business themes or an adjustment within your own management style or your own business practice and bring 1 or 2 of those things home to your individual team, you can take a bigger step forward. Most of our members have been in business for multiple years, and so they understand their brands, they understand who they sell to and sometimes who they don't, but they typically have opportunities to improve internally. I like to use the service vendor example again, because if you add a service vendor into something that you're already good at, it can amplify and improve that particular strength, as well as you can use a service vendor to work on something that's an admitted weakness. So the people that show up there are really good about being open to what they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to work on. And the more they share that, the more value they get to pull out of that show.
Got it. So would you advise that folks that attend go in with some expectations or goals of what they want to take away from the event? Does that lead to a better rate of success or happiness from people having attended?
Yes. Again, it's a reasonable expectation. You won't come to a trade show with the mission of redefining your company, or if you have a list of 20 things, the likelihood of achieving half of them is very small. If you approach it with a top 2 or 3 or a takeaway that you were maybe not even expecting, those are the value points. I get this feedback from members consistently where they go, Lani, I really adjusted the way I manage my personnel, or I found this timesheet software that makes my life easier, or we learned how to use a different ordering system like Portal.io that saves us so much time. If you create time in someone's business, or you create increased efficiencies, those, again, exceed $5 off a speaker, and you want business partners. And so that's really what I hope the goal for any attending member is to add partners and support to their business.
Well, I know that we are bringing a good group from One Firefly to the event, and the event is one of the highlights of my year every year. So I recommend anyone that's listening and or watching to, if you're a ProSource member, to consider going. It's a lot of fun, and there's always valuable takeaways. So, Lani, what's going on in the world of ProSource? Any news, kind of what's the state of the union, or at least from your point of view, as to what's exciting and what's going on in the group?
Thank you for asking. And a lot of this is our theme going into Summit. But if you look at some of the partners that we've added at the beginning of the year, we've increased our depth in software partners. We've increased our depth in lighting solutions. We've expanded into some of the models that support RMR by way of camera and surveillance and networking and platforms that you can manage remotely. So it's been further dressing out of those service partners, as well as a couple of strategic vendor partners here and there where we had businesses that were supporting those channels. We do a member benefit process with every member over the course of the year, and we also collect feedback and trends, and even business that may not be represented in our group, and we use that data to kind of help guide our ship. And then with the leveraging of the strength of our committees, they help us pick the right partners in those respective channels, be it service vendor or a box vendor. But really focusing on the management software for your company and the lighting categories, which we know to be very critical, and then the RMR service categories and the partners that will be supporting those. Those are kind of 3 of the big bullets for 2018, if you will. And a lot more of the meat on the bone will come at the summit in those presentations and those vendors being present in the display hall.
Regarding RMR, I've had a few guests on the show, and we've talked about the topic of RMR. I had Greg Simmons from Eagle Century, and he was talking, and I had Ted, now of Parasol, and I had Mike on from Ahiji prior to their acquisition by Control 4. And I know that ProSource has formed a committee at some point in the last year, maybe more, and a lot of really leading thinkers are on that committee trying to solve the RMR question for ProSource members. Can you shed any more light on what the verdict is, or what the game plan is in terms of making recommendations, or is that public knowledge yet, or is that still in the works?
No, what I can safely say is, having taken the feedback that we've done, and Andy Orozco, who drives that initiative, we've realized that it's not very likely that there's a one size that would fit everybody, whether you're a buying group member or not, or even within our buying group, that we can't just put one lunchbox in front of everyone. So when I talk a little bit about the variety of partners there, some of which will need to be announced through Summit and some of which have already been publicly put forward, we've realized that we need to have an A and a B option to allow our memberships to select what's best fitting on their business level. So
sure.
Whether a warranty provider and a different remote monitoring software in combination with a support element, putting those three pieces together, we may need more than one in a given category. And I think that will be one of the takeaways, that you'll see better detail at Summit. I won't go too much further into the who's who at that point.
Sure.
If they're a current vendor, obviously, then the partnership's already there. So some of those are easy to define, such as yourself or Centricity or even Oversee. But I won't go too far down that road to say that being able to blend them will be the success for the dealers.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'd like to switch gears and
sure.
Maybe use the last 10 minutes or so here to talk about some of your perspectives on, technology contractors or CI businesses. And maybe we'll start with what are some of your observations on some of the key best practices of what in your vision you see as some of the most successful businesses that you call on.
Some of the most successful businesses have embraced process and structure, and they have taught other people what it means to develop the team around them. So when I look at companies and the owner is the only manager in the company, that's not necessarily a great thing. I think people all the time will say they need to hire more technicians, but they may not be actually developing the people and technicians that are there. So my counsel there is treat everyone on your campus as if they are a business person, and don't worry too much about the titles. The same thing in a 10-person company. You shouldn't have 5 or 6 people putting manager on their business card. I know that there's a self-fulfilling thing that makes people feel good, but in actuality, utility players in a 10-person company makes that company stronger. Some folks are motivated differently, and you see that. So I said earlier, treating our industry like a real industry with career paths, with abilities to step forward and add to your skill set. I've just been fortunate in that respect that I've had a handful of mentors that showed me that path. And you got to remember to present that to your coworkers, that there's an ability to be an inventory manager or a warehouse manager, or understanding how process and design works and how to be professional in front of clients translates across all roles within a company. So that's kind of where I've been really leaning very hard in using different tools, whether it be software or just regular communication. Some people prefer text versus email versus a phone call. Being able to define what works best with different partners and when to hit pause and make sure the clear line of communication is open. I think that a lot of folks like to say, I get in the morning to get my crews out the door. Well, in actuality, that's not a meeting. That's a process that could be improved upon, and other people empowered to help you do that. So that's really something that I drive further into when I meet people. When I walk into a showroom and everything's in its place and people understand what the common good is, and they have development plans for people on staff, and I know that's a big one for Greg Simmons. He's presented for me in that regard before. Knowing that people have steps within this industry and within the company they're in is much more reassuring at times than whether someone's going to pay them another $1 an hour or not. And that's where I really think focusing back on the people that are in our industry is important.
How do you position that the average, or it have to be average, could be the above average or below average, but how do you surmise that these business owners would learn to advance in the way that you're describing? What are the avenues? Do you think they should go read books? Do you think they should sit in a seminar? Should they?
It's a mixture of both, because you have to put it into practice. And so what I said earlier, you can't just make a list of 20 things that you have to get better at or get done with. It's one or two. And if you're not great at utilizing software, you should try to define the process of what it takes to actually implement a software. And I like to recommend portal.io because it doesn't cost anything, but it's a great test for other business management softwares that you might need above and beyond that tool. Same thing if you have a messy warehouse and messy vans and things like that, clean those items up and put them into a alphabetic order and stage your jobs in the computer by the job name, because you shouldn't be touching inventory more than one time in and one time out. So putting those practices into place, adding structured meetings to your people and your staff as a leader, and then teaching other people in your company how to conduct those meetings, that opportunity is different from business to business. Some people are very good at the people business. Some people are very good at the process business. Some people are very good at the selling business. But you have to have awareness and people in those other silos to help execute and train into the rest of the team. So to me, sometimes the examples are very basic. It's getting out of that mentality of, well, we've always written invoices this way, and we've always communicated with our customer this way, and we've always signed for inventory this way. Being willing to look at those things and make a shift or a change and empower your teammates to see things that way and not be afraid to recommend a change. That's really where business gets better. And it's not just in the CI side, it's in the vendor and distribution side of our business as well.
What are your thoughts around the startups? So there are startups happening every day. It's always been that way. It probably always will be that way. Some tech thinks they can do it better. Their boss isn't that smart. They're smarter. They're going to go start a business, and thus our industry has grown since the beginning of time in that way in many cases. What's some of your? Go ahead.
No, I like the question. A big part of my focus during my time at Avad was growing those members, and as those members got larger, they eventually had more direct vendors and became large enough to reap benefits from being in buying groups. And I could rattle off a bunch of them. But what ultimately led to their success, whether they wanted to stay small or grow, they kept their list of business partners shorter. They did not add tons of lines. They tried to narrow their business into fewer distribution partners initially. And I personally believe that we need healthy, responsible distribution that feeds employees into the vendor channel as well as feeds businesses into the direct channel and eventually the buying group channel. So for a 1 to 2 man operation that's just beginning or that's been in the business for a year, figure out who your mentors in the market are, whether it's a speaker rep or whether it's a manager at a distribution office or an operations specialist at a distribution office, and try to walk some steps and paths from them. Take counsel and coaching in how you execute your business. Obviously, attending sessions and learning things through business practice and trade shows are good, but that day-to-day reminder from the people that you do business with consistently is the one that stays in front of you. So in any given day, you might work with a distribution partner 2 or 3 times, or you might work with your speaker or your receiver rep 2 or 3 times over the course of a week. it's same thing for us when we're communicating. Just make sure that the content is valuable and that you don't saturate. You communicate strategically. So that's my counsel. I've watched those companies grow, and it feels good when you know people that have been in the business 10 or 15 years that are on solid footing now from starting out in a garage. It's the success stories are still there. You just have to be willing to engage and be different, but take input.
I want to zero back just for a moment on the people development side of the equation. I agree with you that that's an area that's often overlooked or misunderstood, perhaps. And yes, it's the idea of giving your people pathways, right? So giving them choices. In many integration firms, I don't see as much of that, and I don't see as much. In many cases, many firms don't even have job descriptions written, right? So what's your job? And you'll get cross-eyed look like, what do you mean? What's my job? I believe it often starts with knowing what the business needs and writing the job description and then bringing the right people in and moving them around and coaching and nurturing them. What is your opinion, or what guidance can you give around how integrators could do that better or more effectively?
No, it's funny because that's a very common topic between me and my membership as I travel, across all of my states. Step one, in my humble opinion, is you need a development plan for yourself. And I mean, that includes you and me and the business owner. And you have to put one in place for yourself before you can set that expectation for other people on your team. And then that you install some manner of consistency that brings you back to it. Personally, the way our businesses navigate, and my leadership does this with me currently, and my previous leadership did this, we meet quarterly, and we talk about the objectives and the areas that we wanted to bring attention to, areas where we may have met expectations and areas where we may have come up just short. And that's really bringing attention back to that and having that type of meeting, as opposed to 7:30 a.m. and we load the vans to get on the road. Again, I don't view that as a meeting, and it certainly isn't a development cycle. So that's kind of to my heart, is treat them like business people, have a plan for yourself, and then try to have a plan for them. And second to that, when they come into that meeting with you, that you assign them to bring something to that meeting that they want to work on, something that's important to them. My favorite exercise was always, you have one win, one miss, and one opportunity. If you're a leader in a company and you collect that data from your employees consistently, even just via Post-it note, you'll eventually find trends within your own company. And your employees are participating in that exercise, so they ultimately believe that they're providing you the feedback. You have to respond to it in order for them to gain faith in it. So that's my roundabout way of starting the people development process and giving an exercise that I've seen work.
Well, that is gold. That's sage advice, Lani. And by the way, Josh from Portal.io just commented on Facebook. He says, Lani is one of the best dealer advocates in the industry. So
cool.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate you posting. And Lani, thank you very much for joining us. I have a question for you.
It's been a pleasure.
When you're not helping dealers and helping vendors, what are you doing for fun? What do you do outside of the CDA world?
Trying not to lose golf balls. Attend multiple South Carolina athletic events. I seldom miss home football games, but I'll go to a basketball game or a soccer match, or I love their baseball team as well. That's part of my fabric. But being an average golfer and a below average fisherman is my consistent. I'm good at casting, but not so good at catching.
I'm actually taking my son camping this weekend. We're going to go Friday through Sunday, and we're probably going to do a lot of casting. Last time we went, there was a lot of casting. There was no catching, but we're going to try to change that trend this time. We'll see how that goes.
Yes, sir.
So, Lani, thank you very much, sir. Thank you for giving us, letting us, I was going to say borrow, but it's not borrow. You gave us some of your time. So thank you very much. It's very generous of you. And I wish you continued success at ProSource.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you in Nashville, if not sooner.
Yep, going to see you around the corner.
Thank you, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for another episode of Automation Unplugged, brought to you by One Firefly. So I hope you can join me next week. Next week, we're not going to be on Wednesday. We're going to be on Thursday. I'm actually doing some traveling on Tuesday and Wednesday, so needed to move things around a little bit. By the way, Sherry just posted, Lani, you rock. Yes, Lani, you do rock. That was a great interview. And for those of you out there, again, thanks for joining us. And we will see you next time on the next episode of Automation Unplugged. And if you're going to be out at the ProSource Summit in early March, definitely stop by and say hello to us, or stop by and say hello to Lani. So, all right, guys, have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Be well.